Welcome back. This is video number 2. I am filming horizontally instead of vertically this time because I find that, I don't know, we're just kind of figuring it out. I'm not the best speaker. I'm not the best at being on camera. But I'm sure that the more that I do it, the better I will get. So today I want to talk about the relationship between the spiritual and the physical life. And the term physiognomy is basically that your baseline health, your baseline body is kind of determining the lens through which you look at the world. And I think that's true. I think that there is a lot of hormones that are at play. If you have low testosterone, then you are actually going to view the world through a different lens than if you have higher levels of testosterone. And we know that testosterone levels have been dropping across the whole world pretty much for the past 100 years or so, and it's been declining quite rapidly. So it's just good to keep this in mind, that your politics and your biology are kind of interrelated. Therefore, it does matter how you treat your body and how you manage your hormones. And when you lift weights, for example, when you do squats, heavy compound lifts, you're utilizing some of the biggest muscles in your body, your quads, your glutes, and there's this massive hormonal release, and your testosterone goes up. I find that I like to plan out my week after I do a squat session, because you feel great. Your mind is just so much more clear, so much more fresh after you do a big workout session as opposed to beforehand. So I find that you can actually, if you know ahead of time that your hormones are going to spike, you can actually plan and try and do some of the bigger, heavier intellectual work after you work out. I'm experimenting now with actually shooting videos after I work out, because I just did deadlifts in this garage gym here behind me just probably 10 minutes ago, and I think that my mind is much more clear than it was probably 20 or 30 minutes ago. So we'll see if it helps my articulation and my speaking ability having this hormonal rush. But I think that also the foods that you eat, you don't want to eat anything that is estrogenic, like soybean oil, which is in so much food. Like when you go into the grocery store, you look at like most of the prepackaged foods, and if you actually get in the habit of reading the ingredients, most of them have some sort of seed oil or soybean oil, which does lower your testosterone. So probably a good rule of thumb is to not go through the center and go around the edges. Usually the fruit and vegetables and the deli, all the meats, plus the bread and the bakery, that's all around the outside. So if you want to, really the battle is at the grocery store. So I would recommend just go around the outside of the store, walk in, King Soopers or whatever, Kroger, and try to stick to the edges, and you don't need to walk through all the aisles, or just be very intentional, because if you're going back and forth like an S between all the aisles, there's so many more opportunities to be tempted and to buy foods that are not good for you. Also, make sure, one thing that I do is I always try and eat a meal before I go shopping and write a list. That way I'm not like impulse buying all this food that's bad for me. So yeah, the spiritual life, I think there is also a lot of parallels between growing spiritually and growing physically. You have to be disciplined. You have to do it consistently. Mental prayer, praying the rosary, that takes discipline. You have to one thing that happens when you start lifting is that usually the first week or 2 weeks are really shocking, but it kind of orients you towards the proper path if you just keep doing it. And like, you will be now looking through the lens of everything through your lifting performance. After a while, you'll be thinking, oh, should I be going to this party and drinking a bunch of alcohol, or should I go home and get sleep max? Should I eat these chips or not? And there's actual consequences in your lifting performance if you do the wrong thing, if you basically sin against your own body. And if you sin against your own body enough times, like you just won't be able to progress. You won't feel good during your lifts, and that's very demoralizing. So, you have to, there is a lot of parallels between sacrificing the immediate gratification for the longer term building up of something over years. And the spiritual life, there's like the three stages. There is, what is it? The purgative way, the uh, illuminative way, and the unitive way. And I'm pretty sure that most people don't even make it past the purgative way. So in the same way that most people don't make it to a 600-pound deadlift, which is my goal, by the way, most people do not make it very far spiritually because they're not actually disciplined in that way. So I think that as men, especially for men, we need to protect our hormones and just keep that in mind. That's another dimension of things to look into. There is a book called Estrogeneration, which apparently goes into many of the details about all the different types of things in the modern world that will lower your testosterone. Not only that, if you don't get sunlight, if you don't exercise, if you don't get enough sleep, those will all tax your testosterone. So yeah, and not only that, I'd say another parallel is the long-term thing. It's lifting is full of ups and downs. In the Catholic liturgical calendar, there is seasons for a reason. In the same way, in lifting, there's bulking and cutting season. So yeah, like I would recommend actually get in touch with the seasons. It makes sense during fall. You look at pumpkin pie, all the foods you eat on Thanksgiving, all the kind of sugary pastry stuff. That's kind of like bulk season. That's the time during Advent when you should be eating a lot, but during Lent, you should cut back. And kind of being in touch with the seasons liturgically, I think that's what we should be doing. I think it's kind of inverted, if you're purely oriented around lifting. Like a lot of people are bulking during Lent, but I think it's actually better to cut during Lent and to, I'm bulking right now. I'm trying to eat a lot, I'm trying to build muscle, but then in Advent, I'll probably start doing some fasting. Then I'll bulk again in the Christmas season and leading up into Lent. And then during Lent, that's when I'm going to be trying to do the big multi-day fast. Yeah, there's so many different parallels, but I'd say the biggest thing is also just being consistency. I think a lot of people who are into lifting, they find it easier to progress spiritually because they're used to kind of that discipline and sacrifice that it takes to be able to achieve a long-term goal. And it's the same kind of mentality and thinking that you need to progress in the gym, to progress spiritually. So I think it's wrong when you make the gym your god, when you put it first. But like certainly there's nothing wrong with trying to become stronger. There's, especially in this world where men are kind of becoming weaker, and I think a big part of it is just the hormonal dimension of it, because I think a lot of people, they have in their intellect, they understand where the world is, but it's different to have your biology aligned with that values too. So, and it's not bad. Testosterone is not bad. God created testosterone for a reason. So I think I would agree that there is a such thing as toxic masculinity, but I'd say that's not really the case most of the time. If you make, in kind of the pagan sense, if you make your body like your god, and that's like your primary thing, then that's too far. But I'd say most people are on the other extreme where they don't care enough. And I would argue that when you build up your body, you build up also your spirit and your mind, and they all like work together. It's not just one at the expense of the other. They all work together. So yeah, this is kind of a rant, but I'm trying to get better at making these videos. So it's kind of a skill, just like anything else. Like you don't get good right away. Some people might have natural inclinations, but I find that you just learn and get better at doing things through just doing it. So I'm not great. I'm not the best speaker, but I'm sure I'm going to improve just by doing it and putting myself out there. All right. Well, I think that's good. That's about 10 minutes long. So I'll talk to you guys next time.